Welcome to Socials with the Saints. This is a special opportunity to take a break from your daily routine and meet someone who can teach, encourage, and inspire us. You're probably quite familiar with the horrors of the Second World War, the Nazi regime, and the concentration camps that facilitated the torture and murder of approximately 6 million people. Today, I would like to introduce you to one of those people, a female philosopher who is credited with advancing the neo-Scholastic movement in Germany, and whose walk of faith has inspired and transformed millions of people. Walk with me through history and meet Edith Stein. Edith was the youngest of 7 surviving children to Siegfried and August Stein. She was born on the Jewish feast of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, in 1891 in Breslau, Germany. Her father died of heat stroke when she was an infant, leaving the family lumber business to her mother, who would diligently manage it into old age. And I do admire Edith's mother. She had a great impact on the family. A devout Jew, she cultivated a love for the arts within their home. Young Edith became an instant fan of the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. While she also devoured books and wrote poetry, the theater piqued her imagination. Now, picture this. In kindergarten, Edith was bored and insisted that she jump straight into primary school midway through the year. Well, she did, and she rose to the top of her class, demonstrating a remarkable intellect. But at age 14, she decided to take a break from school. She went to stay with her pregnant sister Elsa and brother-in-law, assisting them with daily needs, and of course, enjoying books in between chores. Now, the young couple did not practice Judaism. This period in her life is when Edith made a decision to stop practicing religion as well. She would live as an atheist for the next 10 years of her life. Like many of us, of course, Edith in her young life encountered the challenges, problems, and evils of the world, and at a certain point she experienced depression. She later reflected on that time, saying, "I had lost all confidence in the persons with whom I associated daily. I went about as one unbearably burdened, and I was beyond finding enjoyment in anything at all." What saved her was a ticket to a music festival featuring the works of her favorite composer, Bach. There, she heard a Christian hymn that declared, "And though this world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, we will not fear, truth will triumph through us." She found solace and healing in this, interpreting it in the idea that by trusting those closest to her, they could overcome any evil. By the time she reached college age, she decided to re-enter school. Now, Prussian universities had only recently begun admitting women, as academia were thought to be highly impractical for women. Well, Edith passed the entrance exams, impressing the examiners, and decided to study psychology. Ever her cheerleader, Edith's mother encouraged her to pursue her passion. Now we come to a crucial point. In Edith's philosophical studies, she came across a new philosophy movement focused on examining universal human experiences called Phenomenology. This new methodology had been launched by Edmund Husserl, himself a Jewish convert to Christianity. Edith first applied it by studying human passions, which she argued ultimately reveal our internal set of values. A simple way to put this might be that if you look at what you make time for, your core values will be revealed. Again, Edith fell into depression, which this time caused sleeplessness, inability to rest during the day, and trouble concentrating. She said, "Little by little, I worked myself into a state of veritable despair. I could no longer cross the street without wishing I would be run over by some vehicle." World War I interrupted this internal crisis. She volunteered with the Red Cross as a field nurse, which strengthened her sense of empathy. After her service, a shortage of men led to open teaching positions at her former high school. She taught Latin while earning her doctorate in philosophy. And after receiving her degree, Edmund Husserl himself, the founder of Phenomenology, hired Dr. Stein as his teaching assistant. However, she found the position unfulfilling because he did not treat her as a collaborator, but more as an administrative assistant. She resigned and reflected, "Now I am free. I am not exactly happy." For years, she worked on a thesis paper which was a requirement to be hired as a professor. But no matter how brilliant she was, Edith couldn't overcome the prejudice against females for such a position. In the midst of her studies, Edith's search for truth led her to encounter Christianity on excursions and in the community. After one of her dear friends in academia died in the war, Edith was asked to help sort his papers. She dreaded this task, but was amazed and inspired by the grace of his widow, Anna, who was a living model of a person whose strength came from the cross of Christ. While vacationing at a resort in 1921, Edith began reading a book from the library, the autobiography of Saint Teresa of Avila. Upon finishing, she said aloud, "This is the truth." She began attending daily Catholic Mass while helping her expectant sister, Erna. Edith entered the Catholic Church on the following New Year's Day. Afterwards, she found employment at a teacher's college run by the Dominican Catholic Religious Order, and in her time with the young women she taught, Dr. Stein formed them both intellectually and spiritually. She was also known for her wit and good humor. She would maintain friendships formed at the school for the remainder of her life. She also seemed to be generous with her earnings, as a peer teacher recalled that before Christmas, there was a surprise for everyone in any way connected with her, all beautifully wrapped up, and what big parcels found their way secretly to the poor in the town. Now, Dr. Stein had the opportunity to travel across Europe, teaching and presenting lectures on women and women's issues. People of all walks of life came to hear her speak. From her phenomenological work, Stein presented women and men as different in strengths and natures, yet complementary. She wrote, "Every profession in which a woman's soul comes into its own and which can be formed by a woman's soul is an authentic woman's profession." From traditionally accepted roles to more progressive roles in politics, medicine, and education, Stein saw women transforming society by acknowledging the person because they see persons with their hearts. They see them independently of various ideological or political systems. They see others in their greatness and their limitations. They try to go out to them and help them. She became a major force in the German neo-Scholastic movement, and is to thank for the German translations of Cardinal Newman's Letters and Journals and the Idea of the University, as well as Thomas Aquinas' Disputed Questions on Truth. In 1932, she became a lecturer in Münster, but anti-Semitic legislation passed by the Nazi government forced her to resign the following year. She wrote a letter to the Pope addressing the Church's silence on the stance of this so-called Christian government. It is unknown whether he saw her letter, but Pope Pius XI issued a German-language encyclical teaching which condemned the so-called myth of race and blood preached by the German government, as well as idolization of the state and anti-Semitism. Now let's talk a little bit more about Edith's soul. She maintained a regular practice of prayer each day and made an annual Holy Week pilgrimage to a German Benedictine abbey, where the superior became her spiritual director. After losing her teaching position due to anti-Semitism, she entered religious life as a Carmelite sister in 1933. In April of 1934, she received the habit and the religious name of Teresa Benedicta a Cruce, Teresa, blessed by the cross. Sadly, her mother cut off communication with her for some time after this. It was on Easter Sunday, 1935, that she professed her vows. She wrote home about this event and was surprised to receive a few well wishes from her mother in response. Sister Teresa Benedicta developed a deeper interior life as a Carmelite nun. She reflected that human beings are called upon to live in their inmost region, requiring an extraordinary awakening amidst life's distractions. As a contemplative nun, she continued to write, although her works were not permitted for publication by the Nazis. She was also joining the other sisters in writing poems and plays, a common pastime for Carmelite sisters for hundreds of years. In her continued and deepening appreciation for art, she saw God as the divine artist who collaborates with humanity. When she suffered a broken wrist and foot, she was sent to the local hospital and there received a visit from her older sister, Rosa, who had decided to convert to Catholicism. Rosa was baptized in the hospital chapel and became a Carmelite tertiary, which means that she lived the sisters' spirituality while being able to help care for their needs outside of the convent walls. After Jewish persecution began to increase even further and become more violent, Sister Teresa Benedicta realized that her presence was a danger to her community's safety. She requested and received permission to transfer to a foreign monastery. On the night of New Year's Eve, 1938, she secretly crossed the border into Holland. At the Carmelite convent of Echt, she wrote her last work, The Science of the Cross. Here's an excerpt that reflects where she was in her interior growth and understanding of life. To suffer and to be happy although suffering, to have one's feet on the earth, to walk on the dirty and rough paths of this earth, and yet to be enthroned with Christ at the Father's right hand, to laugh and cry with the children of this world, and ceaselessly sing the praises of God with the choirs of angels. This is the life of the Christian until the morning of eternity breaks forth. She would continue to live the cross. The Dutch bishops issued a letter against recent anti-Semitic activity, and in response, the Nazis arrested all Jews who had converted to Christianity. Sister Teresa Benedicta and her sister Rosa, who had also moved to the Echt Carmel a year after her, were both stuffed into suffocating boxcars to begin their terrible journey on August 2nd, 1942. Come, Rosa, she encouraged her sister. We are going for our people. They were imprisoned at the concentration camps of Amersfoort and Westerbork before being deported to Auschwitz. Now, one official was so impressed by Sister Teresa Benedicta's demeanor that he actually offered her a way to escape. But she said, if somebody intervened at this point and took away my chance to share in the fate of my brothers and sisters, that would be utter annihilation. Sister Teresa Benedicta died in the Auschwitz gas chambers on August the 9th, 1942. You know, there is truly so much to learn from this remarkable woman, and so I would like to invite you to continue this Social with the Saints by listening to the audio discussion about how her life and work can help and enrich us in our daily lives. We also want to encourage you to download a biographical pamphlet and cards with her quotations on our website, pilgrimcenterofhope.org. Thank you for joining me. I hope St. Edith Stein, Teresa blessed by the cross, continues to encourage you. And know that in your journey, you are never alone in the communion of saints.